you're probably going to want to, at the beginning, do pretty well. Again, you're in that learning phase when you start an apprenticeship. You're going to be on a massive learning curve. However, day in and day out, you're not around people that are the same age as you versus in a university environment. Everyone's 18, everyone's 19, everyone's 20, everyone's around that same age group and also have similar priorities. You have much more of a focus on just making sure the time that you spend by yourself or with friends or with family members is much more precious. And you also value that time of holiday. Apprentices may go on the best holidays. Hello, everyone. This is Elijah, co-founder of the Black Apprentice Network, a community of over 5,000 current and aspiring African and Caribbean apprentices. And I'm going to be doing a video on the top 3 things that change once you start your apprenticeship. Definitely subscribe and check out the community. It's going to be linked in the description below, but let's get into it. So number one thing that changes, I would say, is the friends around you and your experience of the friends around you. So being in an apprenticeship, it creates a situation where, you're working, you're doing your 9 to 5, and then you might have a bunch of your friends that are going to university. You may have some of your friends that are going to do the apprenticeship, but just due to the fact that apprenticeships and the nature of it is just so competitive and there isn't that many roles available, it creates a situation where probably the people around you and that friendship group that you're in, not everyone's going to be doing an apprenticeship. And then as you kind of go through life and go through experiences, whether that's within your 9 to 5 or out of it, the things that you're going to be doing is so much more different. And the things that you are going to be wanted to spend your time on, it's going to be a bit different. I think even something simple as, you want to do X thing that's going to cost X amount of money. And because you're doing an apprenticeship, especially if you're on a high paying apprenticeship, you're able to experience those sorts of things. However, someone in uni, they have a different experience of those sorts of things. Maybe they do it, but they're not able to enjoy the experience as much because it's, coming out their paycheck a bit more. Maybe it's a situation where, you're doing something, but your friend can't even do it because they don't have the money to be able to experience that sort of things. So that's the sort of thing that could happen when you're on an apprenticeship, where your experience of different things and your friends is a bit different. Also, your priorities change. When you're in, when someone's in uni, I think the typical sort of assumption of a uni grad, which is not the case for everyone in university, but some people just want to have fun during their first year, not do too much, just do, mediocre at their grades, just be able to pass first year. And then on the second, third year, I could catch up. But as an apprentice, when you're in a team, especially since you want to make sure you set an impression on that team, you're probably going to want to, at the beginning, do pretty well. Again, you're in that learning phase when you start an apprenticeship. You're going to be on a massive learning curve. So it's not necessarily, you're going to be expected to do as much as everyone else on the team, but you can see, how the way in which the team is priming you to be able to do at that level. And you're in a situation where you're actively spending your time just learning skills, learning from the people around you and how to do the role well. So it's a different experience doing an apprenticeship versus university. Also, you're in a situation where you're around a whole lot of people that is your age, right? You can maybe be the youngest person on your team by 10, 15 years of an apprenticeship. You may have other apprentices around you, and especially if you're Black, you have the Black Apprentice Network around you. However, day in and day out, you're not around people that are the same age as you versus in a university environment. Everyone's 18, everyone's 19, everyone's 20, everyone's around that same age group and also have similar priorities. So keep that in mind. I think your relationship with your friends and your relationship with young people around you of the same age is going to be a bit different due to the fact that, 8 hours a day, you guys are in different environments. Or what you want to do outside of those 8 hours a day, it may be a bit different. So number 2, I think another thing that could change, when you start your apprenticeship is your aspirations. Especially if you're in a good apprenticeship in an amazing company, you're able to experience and see all the different people in a bunch of different roles. And if you're doing your apprenticeship right, you should be networking with people that are, more senior within the company. And it could be a range of people that are 1 level more senior or, 9 levels more senior. One for maybe more direct advice in terms of like them being more closer to your level of seniority versus 10 levels more senior, where they could kind of have a bit more of a, give you a broader landscape of the way things are within the company and what the possibilities could be available, as you go, 10, 15, 20 years within your career. And being able to be in that environment, you just understand you have more of a belief of what's possible if you're doing your apprenticeship right. As you speak to different people that are within the company, different people that are within these social roles, you start setting your head, kind of build a roadmap on how you could get to that sort of level. And that's amazing doing apprenticeships. And that's amazing for apprentices. I think graduates can get the same experience, but that's, after they graduate and actually when they get into the role, and they have, the opportunity to get exposure to those different figures within different projects or within different teams or just through, true networking. But if you're in a situation as an apprentice, you get to do that a lot younger. So your priorities sort of change maybe a bit earlier than people at university sort of impart. You get to kind of just learn how you want to kind of impact the firm on a day-to-day basis, also how you want to impact the firm on a day-to-day basis 10, 15, 20 years from now. So if you do your apprenticeship right, you should be able to kind of experience those sorts of things. And now the third thing is how you value your time. As an apprentice, when you're in a situation where you spend 8 hours a day, or in some cases, since some of you guys have studies still as well, 9, 10 hours a day where you're working or studying, it can create a situation where you really value that time out of work. And again, like I said at the beginning of the video, you can value certain types of experiences for an apprentice because you're in a situation where you're working, you're experiencing these sorts of things, you're new to the workplace, and you really value that time by yourself or around your family or around your friends where you get to kind of decompress. And it's a bit different from, again, people within university. People get the chance to kind of be in this environment, only kind of experience being in classes for a certain amount of time in a day, and they're able to kind of spend their time doing other things throughout the day. But as an apprentice, since you're spending a lot more time at work and a lot more time, well, not a lot more time studying, but maybe the same amount of time studying, but a lot more time at work, you're in a situation where you have so much more of a time scarcity. So it causes you to want to prioritize your time in places in which it's actually going to be worth it, right? And also, and I know from personal experience and also talk to a bunch of other apprentices that you may also value your alone time a lot more. So when you get the opportunity to kind of decompress, to kind of chill, to read a book in your room or to kind of play that PS5, you have a chance to kind of decompress and just not think about work as much because you've been in a situation where it's 5 days a week. You've been in that mode of thinking about work or thinking about studying. You may be in a situation where, 5 days a week you're working, but you have an exam the next day. So you have to kind of study on the weekends. So again, if you're in a situation where that time is more scarce, you have much more of a focus on just making sure the time that you spend by yourself or with friends or with family members is much more precious. And you also value that time on holiday. Apprentices may go on the best holidays. So they really, if you're a current apprentice and you're Black, definitely check out the Black Apprentice Network. We might have a holiday for you. But apprentices really value their holidays and kind of go out of the country or go into the uni campus that is, halfway across England and kind of having fun and just kind of decompressing themselves out of that corporate environment. But those are 3 things that kind of change when you start your apprenticeship. These are things that, if you're going into your apprenticeship, kind of keep in mind of. Maybe you start to incorporate those things now. But again, really appreciate you watching the video. Really appreciate you if you're part of Black Apprentice Network, being a part of Black Apprentice Network. And if you're not, check out the link in the description. But that's been Elijah, co-founder of Black Apprentice Network. See you guys soon. And definitely ring the bell as well to make sure that you're notified whenever a video is uploaded. See you later. Hey, cool shoot.